I managed to get my hands on a pair of the Adidas Adios Pro 4s early, which I acknowledge is a very lucky position to be in. So I want to do my part, give you some first impressions, some first thoughts on what this racing shoe is like, because I know this is a highly anticipated model. I'll do a quick rundown of the updates, how I found each part of the shoe, and I'll give some passing comparisons to the Adios Pro 3 before I do some more kind of long-term stuff with comparisons to other brands, a few other things as well. So this is Adidas's top line racing shoe. It sits below the Evo Pro 1, which is their kind of hyper light, very expensive racing shoe. This is coming in at $360. This is going to be the racing shoe that most people are going to use for their kind of half marathon, probably 10Ks as well. You got the Takumi Sen below it for that shorter racing stuff. In terms of the update from the 3, we've got some pretty big changes here. I've seen a few people whinging that it's not really going to change a lot and it's been such a long time coming and it's pretty much the same shoe. They're wrong. There's a fair bit that's changed. There's some really good updates. Most things have been tweaked. This is a different shoe now. In terms of the upper, we've got a more flexible, comfortable, soft mesh, which feels a lot better on foot. It's got a little bit more stretch to it as well, so the fit is a little bit easier to find. We've also got a gusseted tongue now, which is a big win. In terms of the midsole, we've got a new updated Light Strike Pro foam, which is softer, more compliant, but still has that same kind of resilient bounce that people have come to expect from the Pro 3, but it's definitely softer. We've still got energy rods embedded in the midsole, but the geometry and rocker of the shoe has been updated to be quite similar to the Evo Pro 1, with this 60% rocker starting at 60% of the length of the shoe from the heel. The rocker kicks in. It's a little bit smoother, a little bit more subtle than the Pro 3, and I think it integrates quite nicely into the ride of the shoe. In terms of the outsole, we've got a new compound, which is something I wasn't expecting. We've got light traction, which I think is a CPU compound, and we've still got a slither of Continental rubber at toe off. As I said, $360. I think it's going to be releasing in December and then some more colorways in January. The weight has also dropped a fair bit. We've gone from 235 grams on my men's size 10 to about 217 grams. So some decent weight shavings there. Quick rundown of each part of the shoe, how I've kind of found it. The upper, I enjoyed a lot more than the Pro 3. I can remember having a fair bit of trouble finding the right fit in this shoe because it has very little stretch in the upper material. It's quite harsh, there's very little padding, and the laces aren't great. The laces still aren't great here, to be fair, but it was tricky to find a good fit. Here, things have been fixed with this more comfortable mesh. Has a little bit more give, a bit more stretch, and I just found it a lot easier to lock down. I did find the fit to come a little bit short, so this size 10, I can feel my toe up against the end of the shoe, whereas this size 10, in most Adi Zero shoes as well, this size 10 had a little bit of extra room ahead of the toes. So something to be aware of there, if you're kind of riding close to the lower size, might be worth a half size up for the Pro 4. The width is a pretty standard super shoe fit. I wouldn't be betting on this to be more accommodating than any other super shoe. It's just a more comfortable lockdown. I think this is an update that needed to happen, and I think they've done very well. In the midsole, this new Light Strike Pro feels very, very nice underfoot, softer, more compliant, and when it combines with that 60% rocker, I think it feels exceptionally smooth underfoot. The Pro 3 had this kind of rubbery bounce, which I really enjoyed. It felt like the more you put in, the more you got out. The Pro 4 doesn't have that same radical bounce, but it definitely feels like more of your energy is being transferred into forward motion, if that makes sense. Pro 3 kind of bounces you upwards and off through your toe. The Pro 4 keeps you a little bit closer to the ground, but I feel like it's still very fast in a kind of more efficient way. With a couple of the weight savings that they've managed to do on this shoe, they have flared out that forefoot area to be a little bit wider. So I did find it to be quite stable through the midfoot and forefoot. And there's a really nice big pad of foam which you can land on, which I really enjoy as a forefoot striker. It's quite a natural, smooth ride. I don't think it takes much learning or kind of adaptation to really get used to. I found it to be, smooth, fast, a really nice update. I think it's more comfortable than the Pro 3. I think a lot of people are really going to enjoy this. In terms of the outsole, as I mentioned, I was quite surprised to see it change from the full Continental rubber, but this new light traction stuff does feel pretty good underfoot. Maybe not quite as sticky as the Continental, but I can also accept the fact that there's probably some weight saving that's come with this, and it does feel softer on the ground, which I think is aiding with the kind of softer transition through your stride. Continental was never really slappy, but this definitely feels smoother on landing, and you get kind of a more seamless transition onto the road. For what it's worth, I do think I noticed the Continental rubber patch in that toe-off area. I think it is nice to have that little bit of extra bite as you kind of flick off the ground. In terms of who this shoe is going to work for, I think that this is actually going to be more approachable than the Pro 3 for the kind of mass consumer market. I think the fact that it's softer, a little bit more compressive is going to appeal to those people who like shoes like some of the New Balance stuff, especially like the SC Elite. A lot of people really like that softness, the comfort. I think a lot of people are going to be drawn to this shoe. It looks fantastic as well, which always helps. This is going to still be a top performer though. I think this is amongst shoes like the Alpha Fly 3, like the Vaporfly. The Cloudboom Strike is probably the most similar comparison, which I'll get to down the line. Definitely will be interesting to see what kind of runner goes for this shoe, because I think that this is one of those ones that's going to work for both the elites, the people at the top end of the sport, and for the people who want something which feels fairly comfortable at some of those slower paces. It didn't feel clunky or kind of jarring at my kind of warm-up paces. I did still take a daily trainer to warm up, but even just jogging to get my reps started felt pretty good. The softness of the foam is definitely more approachable than the Pro 3, so it'll be interesting to see how that kind of goes. If you're here from my Instagram, which I made a quick review of the Pro 3 and mentioned the Pro 4, I think at the moment, $250 for the Pro 3 versus $360 for the Pro 4. This is better value, it's a better buy, but I think in terms of the overall performance, the Pro 4 is a better shoe. I love the Pro 3 and I'll probably keep it in my rotation as a kind of long run shoe, something for the odd tempo session here or there, but the Pro 4 is definitely taking over as the dominant speed and racing shoe. If I was going to summarize the differences, this has got a much better upper, it's more comfortable, locks down better. This has got a softer midsole, whereas this has kind of got that more rubbery, firmer bounce, which some people would definitely prefer. And on the outsole, I don't think there's a whole lot of difference, but this is definitely a little bit softer, which contributes to the softer feel of the midsole. Two great shoes here. I really like what Adidas have done with the update. There's always a bit of pressure when you go a long time without updating a shoe. They could have gone crazy and changed absolutely everything, but I think they've tweaked the things that needed to be tweaked. They changed some things which I didn't expect, but they've executed it well. Overall, very excited to see this release in December. Some more colorways in January. I think this is definitely one to keep an eye out for.